Hey guys, so yesterday you started learning about Anne Bradstreet and other Puritan poets, but we're going to focus on Anne Bradstreet today. This is just a little more information than what you might have gotten from what you already read on the slideshow. So, if you didn't already look up a picture, this is Miss Anne Bradstreet in all of her Puritan garb. And she, as you can see, was born 1612 to 1672 was when she lived. So she was born 1 year after the King James Bible was put out in England. She was born in England. And at the age of 16, so a lot of you are 16, she got married to Simon Bradstreet. And he and her father were somewhat partners in business. And she began her life at that point as Anne Bradstreet. Then 2 years later, she finds herself with her husband and her father and mother on a ship on their way to the New World. And what's kind of interesting about this is that I looked at the year that she went on that journey, and it was 1630. And of course, the first thing that popped in my mind was 1630, John Winthrop. So I looked it up, and sure enough, she was on the same ship, the Arabella, as John Winthrop. She probably even got to hear that speech that he gave about City Upon a Hill. So here she is. She finds herself going from England to America. She wasn't super excited about this journey and all the hardships that they had to encounter, not only on the journey, but also once they arrived. And her husband and her father, over the years, both became governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which is where they resided. And that would be in near present-day Boston. So here's our little map of Boston. And you can see, oh, by the way, that's my dog's name, Boston. You can see here is Boston, Massachusetts. It's called the Bay Area for a reason. See all that water? And it's actually split between these two parts and down here. And then if you go over here, you'll see Harvard and University, which was both her father and her husband helped to found that university. But it's only like 3 miles from Boston, so it's pretty close. Now, the significance behind their thoughts on education, since we're talking about universities, is that they believed in kind of an unpopular thought and practice that women should be educated. So even before Anne Bradstreet came to the New World with her family, she was very well read. She had been tutored in lots of languages, including Greek and Latin and French and Hebrew and English, of course. And she had access to vast libraries where she spent a lot of time reading, especially about the histories, including Greek histories, which she included in a lot of her writings and her poems. If you look up some of her poems in the 10th Muse, Lately Sprung Up in America, it is lengthy, epic poems about history. And she has one in particular about Alexander the Great, which is, for whatever reason, a popular topic at our house. And she goes through just all of the wars and the different things that happened politically with him. So she would have had to have a lot of background knowledge to be able to write any of that. So let's see. Let's move on to Upon the Burning of Our House. So actually, no, let's step back a little bit further. So her collection of poems The 10th Muse, lately sprung up in America, was published in 1650. This was a huge deal because not only was she the first American author, but she was also the first English poet that was a woman that had been published. And she was very popular. Her brother-in-law had taken her poems, possibly against her will, or against her knowledge maybe initially, had taken them to England from America and had them published. And if you read the beginning of that collection of poems, he actually has kind of a little prologue at the beginning there. But she was not very happy about this. If you read any of her thoughts on it, I'm sure she probably had some of the Puritan leaders who were not happy that she had been published. Puritan women were not supposed to be poets, and they probably weren't supposed to be published writers. So this was a very out-of-the-box concept, not only for women in general, but also for, especially in her case, for Puritan women. So we get to Upon the Burning of Our House. Just a personal connection for me. So let's see, about a year and a half ago, I was living in North Idaho with my family, near St. Mary's, Idaho, and in the mountains. And I got a phone call from my principal at the school I was teaching to come to the office. Came to the office, and there was the sheriff, and he said, "Where's your family?" And my family had fortunately gone on some errands that morning out of town. So I told him that, and he said, "I'm really sad to tell you, but your house has burned down and is on fire." Actually, currently it was on fire at that time. And he said it was a complete loss. And at that moment, I don't know if you've ever been through something like that, but you kind of go into this fog of thought, and you're thinking about your family, and you're thinking about what does this mean, and what's really happened and what is happening. And I can remember getting on the phone, and my husband, they were on their way back from town, and telling him that the house had caught on fire that morning and that everything had burned. And it's just a devastating moment to know that you've lost everything. And if you've been through something like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we were so fortunate that none of us were physically harmed. We did lose our dog, Sadie, and that was really sad. But I can still remember my husband came to pick me up at the school, and we drove up the mountain to the house, and the firefighters were still there, and it was still just blazing. And we parked and just looked and cried and just thought about how awful this was, and how even though there was this inkling of happiness that we weren't in there, at the same time, it's just a horrible thing to watch something like that happen. So the house actually burned for days and days. It was a huge house that we were renting, and we went back there that evening and tried to save some things. We had some awesome neighbors who came and helped us pull some things out. And then we just started to regather whatever we could. So I'm going to quickly read Upon the Burning of Our House by Anne Bradstreet. And it's a very personal poem for me because of what we went through in our family. And I can completely 100% relate to everything that she writes in this poem. Upon the Burning of Our House, written July 10th, 1666 by Anne Bradstreet. In silent night, when rest I took, for sorrow near I did not look, I wakened was with thundering noise and piteous shrieks of dreadful voice. That fearful sound of fire and fire, let no man know, is my desire. I, starting up, the light did spy, and to my God my heart did cry, to straighten me in my distress, and not to leave me succorless. Then coming out, behold a space, the flame consuming my dwelling place. And when I could no longer look, I blessed his name that gave and took, that laid my goods now in the dust. Yea, so it was, and so 'twas just. It was his own, it was not mine. Far be it that I should repine. He might of all justly bereft, but yet sufficient for us left. When by the ruins oft I passed, my sorrowing eyes aside did cast, and here and there the places spy, where oft I sat and long did lie. Here stood that trunk, and there that chest, there lay that store I counted best. My pleasant things in ashes lie, and them behold no more shall I. Under thy roof no guest shall sit, nor at thy table eat a bit. No pleasant talk shall e'er be told, nor things recounted done of old. No candle e'er shall shine in thee, nor bridegroom's voice e'er heard shall be. In silence ever shalt thou lie. Adieu, adieu, all's vanity. Then straight I 'gan my heart to chide, and did thy wealth on earth abide? Didst fix thy hope on mouldering dust? The arm of flesh didst make thy trust? Raise up thy thoughts above the sky, that dunghill mists away may fly. Thou hast a house on high erect, framed by that mighty architect, which glory richly furnished, stands permanent though this be fled. It's purchased and paid for too, by him who hath enough to do, a price so vast as is unknown, yet by his gift is made thine own. There's wealth enough, I need no more. Farewell my pelf, farewell my store. The world no longer let me love, my hope and treasures lie above. So, a few things in this. One is we see the evidence of the Puritan plain style with a lot of the thys and thous. And you can see the evidence, surely, of just Puritan upbringing, where she talks about losing everything that she had and that it wasn't really hers to begin with, it was God's. And then she compares that her earthly home is gone, but that her heavenly home is going to be, as she says, which glory richly furnished, stands permanent though this fled. So even though her house is burned down, she's thinking about heavenly things. So if you have any questions or comments, just let me know. And that's a little about Anne Bradstreet.